dudes, how you doing? I hope you're having a damn good day. Welcome back to the channel, and today we will be discussing the tactics for RC Lons under Franck Haise. Anyways, we're going to be discussing those set of tactics, trying to recreate the best form or best set of tactics in FIFA 23. So, if you can, hit the like button down below, please. It would be absolutely fantastic. We are growing at a phenomenal rate, thanks to you people, of course. Mad love for the support, mad love for the appreciation, mad love for all the likes, subscriptions, and all that good stuff. So let's hop on into it. Of course, we've got Sakota up front here. Of course, he is replacing Opendo, who left for RB Leipzig. We've got Fulgini, Thomason, Mikado, Abdul Samit, I think that's how you pronounce it, Spearings, Frankowski, Gradit, Danso, Medina, Samba, formerly of Nottingham Forest. You know, what a time. I mean, last season when he left, I was like, that's such a stupid move. Why would you go to Lons? Well, he's proven me wrong, and a lot of people actually wrong, by almost winning League One and getting into the Champions League. So good for him. Then on the bench, in the substitute department, we've got Wahi, a new signing, of course, linked with Arsenal, linked with all these great, huge teams, and he chose RC Lons over all of them. We've got Costa, Claude Maurice, Hidara, Leka, Cabot, and then of course Diouf. And then in the reserves we've got a few other players as well. Some new signings here, to be fair, good for them. Cortez being one, Gilavogi being another. So some solid signings, and I do apologize profusely. I have never been and will never be good at pronouncing names of players that I've never heard of before. It takes me a while to get, the correct pronunciations, all the good enunciations down, to the T. So I do apologize for that. But we're not here for my pronunciations. We're here for the tactical breakdown that I'm going to provide for you. So as you can see here, with the current formation, we've gone with a 3-4-2-1 setup. Of course, we've got one goalkeeper, 3 centre-backs, 2 central midfielders, not DMs, central midfielders, 2 wide midfielders, 2 centre-forwards, and then 1 striker. So I did basically just bring in the wide midfielders, just ever so slightly getting them nice and tight to the likes of your central midfield and, of course, your attacking centre-forward. But yes, that's more or less all I've done with that going forward. So having a look at the tactics, of course, Franck Haise's side try and implement a press after loss of possession. They are quite happy to work without the ball and more or less soak up pressure, try and hit you on the counter-attack. They do have a great build-up play, a very attacking offensive lineup when out of position and when trying to hit the counter-attacking football type things. So more or less they try and create overloads in those wider areas, more times not having the fullback there and the centre-forward helping the midfielder trying to win the ball back in those wider areas, the flanks of the pitch. And they do try and force the opposition out wide more times than not. And as you can see here, for the width itself, it is set to 60. Now, one thing I did note was the front 3 try and press as aggressively as possible high up the field. And if that press is beaten, they'll drop into like a 5-4-1 formation with just having Sokoto up front and having your 2 centre-forwards helping back, joining up with the midfield, creating nice overloads in that defensive department to try and win the ball back as quick as possible. And then as for the depth, it's a high mid-block, you could say. It's not exactly the highest line, but at the same time, you do have fast, pacey centre-backs that are quite capable of getting back and beating their opponents. But again, it's a bit of a safety precaution to go with this because, of course, you are trying to play at least attacking football. And with this mid-high block depth set to 70, it does help you try and win the ball back when the opponent is trying to hoover it up the field as well. And then as for the offensive play, it is set to balanced. Of course, it's a very versatile system. You can hit the long balls. I think Medina himself, I think he is the next coming of what Martinez is at Manchester United. I think he's a fantastic player. He's quite happy to play line-breaking passes through the midfield, through to the attacking lineup, or the attacking line, or the forward line. That's the one. So he can play those long balls. He can hit the diagonal balls as well. Danso and I think it's Graditz. What's his name? Graditz. There we go. They are also very capable. And I mean, last season essentially we saw that they did mount a few assists from the back line, which is really, really cool. It's nice to have a full team involved in the attacking play in certain moments. So they can play the long ball system. They can build up quite quickly with your wing backs bombing on forward, creating width in those wider areas, but also at the same time joining up with the midfield to help with the build-up play essentially. So that's why I've gone with a more balanced approach in the build-up play. As for the trans creation as well, it's also said to have a balanced approach. So they will look to try and maintain possession in certain moments, but at the same time, they are a very versatile and dynamic system. So they can have a more possessive-based style of football, or you can have to just try and hit your forwards who will make runs in behind the opposition's backline, more or less against the likes of a PSG or a bigger team like that. You want your forwards being a bit more imposing on the game, trying to threaten the opposition's backline, and that's why you would more or less go with the forward runs. But that's also why I've gone with the balanced attack, because you want to have all those nice elements of FIFA 23, especially with the chance creation tactics. You want to have those all incorporated into your attacking moves going forward. And then as for the width, it's set to 70. Like I did mention earlier, your fullbacks or your wingbacks in this situation, your wide midfielders, they are going to be very, very important, stretching the play, creating a load of space in that midfield, creating space for that front three, because that front three is somewhat compact as it is, and they will need enough space to try and generate attacking moves for themselves, and of course work with those half spaces as well. And you can generate that by having your fullbacks bombing on, or your wide midfielders bombing on up the field, creating space, whipping in crosses into the box for your players. Now, speaking of the box, players in the box is set to a very high 8. You do want to have at least your 3 attackers in there, maybe a midfielder, or sometimes the opposite side's fullback or wingback or wide midfielder. I'm literally going with all 3 of those names because they essentially do have all 3 of those roles in the system, which is very, very cool. So you do want to have as many players in the box as possible for those amazing scoring opportunities that you will be creating for yourself. And then as for corners and free kicks, as per always, it is set to 4. Now, before I continue, do you guys like this style more? Like, this is something I've been playing with. Obviously, I've been writing it down, the tactics side of it, and, you know, reading it out to you guys. I think it gets the point across a bit more. But at the same time, I do understand that it does take the fun side of me out of it. I don't know. Do you guys like this more, or do you guys like the other system more? Where, if you don't know what I'm talking about, click on either the Sporting Lisbon video or... No, not the Sporting Lisbon video. The Sporting CP video. I was told the other day that it was not Sporting Lisbon, it's Sporting CP, and that's that. So anyway, so click on the Sporting video, or click on the Union Berlin video, and just have a look at that. And if you like that style more, that would be great to let me know. Let me know in the comment section, please. I would absolutely appreciate it, because obviously I want to create content that you guys really like. And if you guys really prefer this way or the other way, let me know and I'll do more videos like that. So, the social experiment is now over. We're going to hop on into the instructions. So as for Bryce Samba, the goalkeeper, of course, he's set to come for crosses and be a sweeper keeper. Now, I have played around with him having a bit more of a balanced approach and not being the sweeper keeper, but you are playing a mid to high block at times. So it's on the higher side of the mid block, essentially. It's not actually a mid-high block. It's a mid block that's on the higher side of things. So the defense can be exposed in certain moments with the balls over the top, and that's why you do need your goalkeeper to come out of his protective area and try and get that ball back and circulate it back into your team's possession. And I mean, I did see against Manchester United in preseason. I know it was the preseason game, but Bryce Samba was very good at just, you know, coming out of his box, running off of his line, claiming those balls on the edge of his box at times, sometimes stepping out of that 18-yard box and winning the ball back and, like I say, circulating it back into his team's possession. So I would say sweeper keeper is the best way to replicate that. And then, of course, as per always, come for crosses. He's very good with the aerial balls, claiming that shit, and making sure that his team is defensively solid from the crosses, the corners, and free kicks and everything. And of course, you do try and look to work your opposition out wide for those crosses to be fired into the box, because you do have the likes of a Bryce Samba, and of course, you do have your big, strong midfield, three defenders slightly ahead of him. And speaking of those big, strong three defenders slightly ahead of him, we've got Kevin Danso, who I rate so highly. He is set to his base set of instructions, but Gradit and Medina are set to slightly differentiating roles from Danso. They are both set to overlap, so they will look to maybe sometimes step up into the midfield, be a bit more adventurous with their ball carrying ability, so they'll look to collect the ball, turn, drop their shoulder, run into the midfield, creating little overloads for your midfield 2, sometimes your midfield 4, depending on where the wing backs or the wide midfielders are in certain situations. Sorry, I just hit this. But that is the thinking and the process behind trying to replicate a realistic system. And then in your midfield, we've got Abdul Samed, and then we've got Spearings, a new signing. So what we noticed last season was Fofana would be the furthest forward midfielder out of the two midfielders, and the one would stay back. So in this case, I've gone with Spearings to replicate the Fofana role. And he's there to get forward, get into the box, sometimes being that guy that makes his late runs on into the box and pops off shots from just outside that offensive area. And then he is set to stick to position and cover the wing in certain moments, looking to try and fill in for the fullback or the wide midfielder if they have advanced on too high up the field and you've lost the ball. So they will look to try and cover those areas. And then as for your other central midfielder, he is set to stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the box, so he will look to try and, get the ball collected. He'll always be the free man. If you are slightly too congested going forward, you need to just alleviate some pressure. He will be that free man in the midfield more times than not. Normal interceptions will be on cover the centre. Of course, he's going to try and, shield that back three in certain moments. And then, of course, he's going to stick to his position. As for Mikado and Frankowski, they are set to the same set of instructions. Come back on defence, stay wide, come short in certain moments. And of course, get into the box. They will look to make those back post runs in certain moments. But more importantly, stay wide. They are looking to hold the width. But I've gone with come short because sometimes they are more involved in the central areas in the build-up play if needed. If they're trying to create little overloads in certain areas when you are trying to build the ball up through the thirds of the pitch and trying to get it up as high as possible. And of course, come back on defense. Very self-explanatory. You're not playing with a natural fullback. You're playing with wide midfielders / wingbacks, and this role and this set of instructions replicates that to the best of its ability. So starting off with the slightly further forward centre forwards, slightly differing roles. For Goonie, he's set to have a balanced width, so he will look to operate either in the wide right space, or he will look to operate in the half spaces generated around the centre forward, or the striker in this case. And of course, he is set to be a target man. Both players are set to be target mans. They like to back into the defenders, have the ball knocked into their feet, hold off the defender, and then either lay it off to the fullback or potentially to the striker, who will look to make runs in behind in the advanced attacking areas. Normal interceptions will be set to on, and then of course basic defensive support is set to on. You don't want them just to hang further forward. You want them to sometimes drop down, drop deep into the midfield and help out on the defensive side of things. Like I said earlier, they do tend to drop deeper to try and create a 5-4-1 formation if the ball is not past the pressing front line or the front three. So they will look to drop into that midfield and try and win the ball back as quick as possible. And then we've got Thomason. He is a slightly differing role. He's set to stay central, be the target man. Normal interceptions will be on, and then have a basic defensive support. Basically, the only alteration is the stay central, so he will look to occupy the central area of the field a bit more. Sometimes what it does is it creates a 3-4-1-2 formation, essentially, with him being more of a number 10 in certain areas, in certain aspects. So he does look to more or less have Mikado have a load more space on that left-hand side, with him drifting inside a bit more. And then finally, we've got our striker, Satoka. He is set to have a balanced width. Now, when those long balls are hit into those wider areas, those wide channels, he will look to more or less try and track them down, make sure that he's running the channels more times than not. But at the same time, you do have centre forwards that are capable of doing that. And of course, Thomason, he will occupy the central area more times than not. So it does make sense to have a striker like Satoka or a Penda to slightly arc his runs out of the box, or sometimes into the box, of course. But more importantly, he's set to stretch the offensive system, stretch the defensive backline of your opponents, and make sure he's making those runs in behind, creating space for your centre forwards to function in. Normal interceptions will be on, and then basic defensive support is set to be on for his defensive support. You do want him to stay forward and be the focal man, but at the same time, you do also want him to help the team when you are out of position with the ball, and trying to win it back as high as possible. So yes, my dudes, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please smash the like button down below. Let me know if you want me to more or less, do the tactics the way I did it this video, or if you want me to do the tactics the way I did it in the Sporting CP video, the Union Berlin video, and so on. Please, it matters to me, so please guys, comment down below. Let me know what you think of the new structure, or if you prefer this structure of the videos going forward. So, until the next time, I hope you have a damn great day, and I'm out.